Zach's father walked fast on the sidewalk, hoping to find an open store so he could buy a gift for his son's birthday. He just finished his overtime shift at the local factory and just got his paycheck. Only $100. When they said in the news that the recession had hit harder than expected, they were damn right. Zach's father really didn't know what to buy for his 11-year-old now. He needed another baseball glove, but the only ones he found were way out of reach for his budget. He eventually stumbled upon the video game store. He stopped to read an ad about the brand new Pokemon adventures, White and Black. Zach loves the Pokemon show that was on TV, and his father knew that he would absolutely love a game. As he entered the store, he headed to the counter and asked the clerk for a Pokemon game. Either the black one or the white one. With a sigh, the clerk told him that they'd not only sold out of all the black and white copies, but all the Pokemon games they had in stock, and the next shipment would only arrive in 4 months. Disappointed and disheartened, Zach's father slowly exited the store, and the sun began to disappear in the horizon. Thinking of which lame excuse he could use to calm Zach, he stumbled across a square, flat box. His eyes grew as he recognized the game on the box. It was a copy of Pokemon Black. He couldn't believe it. It was too good to be true. He took the box and opened it, and there saw the black cartridge game in its place. Running back home in time for dinner, he carefully wrapped the box into paper and added red and yellow ribbons to it. After a wonderful dinner with what they could have, came the birthday cake. Well, cupcake. But Zach was really happy. He received many gifts from his friends at school, many pens, some fancy stickers, a football. But Zach knew the best was yet to come. After the dessert, it was time to open the presents from his family. He got a great t-shirt from his mother, and his grandparents gave him some money. It was the turn of his father's present. He recognized the shape of the present, so he opened it up with a lot of excitement. As his eyes read the title of the game, he jumped everywhere in the small house and thanked his father many times for the best gift he could have received. He immediately ran to his room, took out his Nintendo DS and crammed the cartridge into it. He couldn't get over his excitement as he saw the title screen and began to play. He started his adventure right away and thought of how jealous his classmates would be tomorrow, because he was the first one who got the game already. As he played, the time passed by. His mother, before she went to work, scolded him a little for being up so late. After brushing his teeth and giving a kiss to his mother, he went to his room, hid under his bedclothes, and continued to play quietly. He wouldn't be in shape for school tomorrow, but to heck with it. It was his birthday after all, wasn't it? So, he continued playing his game. Meanwhile, his father went to bed because he had to wake up early to drive Zach to school and then go to his own workplace. Hours passed fast for little Zach, who continued playing and collecting Pokemon. He had 5 of them when he heard the clock in the hallway indicate midnight. Wow, midnight already? Thought our little Zach. Maybe I should rest for now. But before he could choose his save option, he saw a Pokeball on the ground, on the road that he was walking on. As he picked it up, the screen indicated that he just got a Haunter. Surprised and happy at the same time, Zach checked his new Pokemon he got. When he checked its stats, he was shocked by what he saw. First, his Haunter was level infinity. How could something like that happen? Second, he had 100 XP, but it wasn't written as XP. It was written SLS. Searching for the meaning of this, Zach also found that his SLS bar was filled, as if the bar was always filled. Other than that, he looked like a normal Haunter. Switching to his moves, Zach had to rub his eyes to believe it. His Haunter had only one move with infinite PP. There wasn't any description of what the move did, but it did leave a bad impression on Zach's mind. His only move was Soul Devourer, a dark type move. Zach didn't even know if a move like that really existed. A little disturbed by his new Pokemon, Zach decided to test him. Wandering in the tall grass, he eventually found a wild Pokemon. It was a low-level Rattata. Zach sent out his first Pokemon, then he switched to Haunter. The text box showing at that moment shocked him again. Rattata is too afraid to move. How could that happen? Zach shrugged and chose to use Soul Devourer. The text box then told him in the normal format. Haunter used Soul Devourer. Then the screen faded to black. For a second, Zach was scared at the idea that all his data was lost. But then the screen reappeared after a short time, with only the back sprite of Haunter on the screen. The text box then said, "Another soul has been claimed." Beginning to be a bit scared, Zach then witnessed something he thought was impossible. The SLS meter went backward. After the combat, Zach hurried and checked Haunter's stats. His SLS was now 99. Zach began to wonder if it was a real black game, or if it was a hacked game like the ones he read about on the internet. He decided to continue anyway. An hour had passed, but it seemed too fast for Zach. His Haunter's SLS meter was going down very fast. It was now around 35. Zach found out that SLS simply meant souls. He also found out that every time he used him, the enemy Pokemon was unable to move because they were all too afraid of him, even in a Pokemon battle. He also spotted that the more his Haunter collected souls, the creepier he became. His eyes were swallowed by his eye sockets, turning into 2 white pixels. His teeth seemed to become sharper, as did his claws. His colour also seemed to get darker, closer to total black, and his smile seemed wickeder than ever. But that's not all. As he checked his other Pokemon stats, their sprites seemed to be scared by something. They were all sharing the same expression more or less, an expression of total fear and distress. Zach decided to get his Haunter into a PC, so he could stop witnessing this nonsense. He dropped it into a box and returned to the game, and as he encountered an opponent, he tried to use another Pokemon, but to his biggest surprise, the Haunter sprite moved into place and threw the Pokeball back. After the combat, that was too much for Zach to take. He saved his game and turned it off, or at least, he tried, but the button didn't work anymore. At this point, Zach was scared and covered with hot sweat. Even if he wanted to quit the game and throw it away in the sewers, he couldn't stop playing now. He must continue. Later, Zach checked his Pokemon stats. Haunter now looking creepier than ever. He was now completely black, with 2 burning pixels for his eyes. It also seemed that some foul substance seeped out of his mouth. But the worst part of him? His souls meter. He only needed 1 now. What would happen when the meter becomes completely empty? Zach really didn't want to know, and so closed the menu. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a trainer challenged Zach to a Pokemon battle. The trainer threw a little Pikachu into the fight. Zach didn't get the chance to throw out his first Pokemon, as his Haunter was already on the battlefield and used his deadly move. Zach passed quickly over the text. He didn't want to read any more "another soul has been claimed" messages. After the fight, an evolution screen showed up, with the Haunter sprite on it. A message box appeared to announce that Haunter was evolving. "That's not possible!" Zach screamed. "Haunters only evolve when they're traded!" Some light-masked Haunter and evolution tones started, but the Haunter's own form didn't change into a Gengar, despite it being its next evolution. It didn't change at all. The music suddenly stopped, and both screens turned black. Zach, scared, carefully pressed a button, then another. No reaction. He was beginning to de-stress, when suddenly a high-pitched scream came up from the DS speakers, along with snow in both screens. Terrified, Zach tried anything to stop it, but it continued. Worse, the snow in both screens took the form of a pair of eyes in the top and a screaming mouth in the lower one. Zach finally threw the DS on the wall, causing it to break. The scream stopped instantly. Sobbing a little, Zach inched a little closer to take a look at the mess that he'd made. Seeing that nothing else had happened, he turned around and prepared to get into bed, when suddenly, a tar-like hand grabbed him by his foot. Zach started screaming. hoping that his father would come and save him from this thing. Despite the hand being liquid, the young boy felt huge solid claws lacerate his ankle. As Zach crawled to get away, calling for his father to rescue him, tar-like hand solidified itself into a huge, sharpened claw. More tar flew from the DS, and soon, a humongous ball of tar was floating in the air. It turned rapidly into a head, with empty eyes and a devilish, sick smile on its face. As Zach got close to the door, the creature grabbed him by his t-shirt and spoke. "There's no one to hear you, master," said the creature with a dual-toned voice. "Only you and me." As the creature was about to bite his head off, Zach woke up, panting from his terrible nightmare that he just had. Searching for his DS, he found it smashed on the wall, broken. As he thought of his crazy nightmare, he felt something running down his nose. He went to the bathroom to clean it up, but as soon as he saw himself in the mirror, he stopped. It was blood. His own blood, which was running from his nose. He thought that maybe it was the stress, so he cleaned it up. But, as soon as he finished, something tickled him in his ears. He checked there. It too was blood. Trying to find a logical answer, he looked at the mirror. A single blood tear was running down his cheek, and it dropped in the sink. With a shaking hand, he cleaned all the blood in his face and in the sink. But when he looked in the mirror again, it wasn't his reflection anymore. It was the tar creature, smiling wickedly to Zach as his hands grabbed him again from the mirror. The creature then got closer to Zach, enough that he could smell his breath, a mixture of rot, trash, and death. At this moment, Zach recognized the creature. It was his haunter. And as it understood what Zach thought, it grinned even more and violently took a bite out of him. Zach woke up again in his bed. He started to cry as he went to his parents' room. He screamed in tears while entering, cursing his father for his poisoned gift. But as he saw the empty bed, Zach ran around the house, searching every room for his father. There was no one here, except for himself. As Zach became aware of that fact, all of the walls were covered in tar, and the demonic haunter emerged from them. It said, "You will live this scene again and again and again for eternity, master. Unless..." Zach interrupted him quickly. "Please, I'll do whatever you want, just make it stop." "With the most delectable pleasure," the monster said. And, taking the poor terrified child at his eyes level, he added, "Witness into my eyes, master. The last thing you'll ever see. Oblivion." Later that night, Zach's mum returned from her night shift. She opened the door and was instantly shocked. The house was turned upside down. Furniture was shredded apart, and there were broken pieces of it everywhere. She thought that some thieves had broken in and immediately thought of her family. As she ran through the kitchen, she saw the body of her husband lying on the couch, fatally wounded in the stomach. She ran to him, but it was too late. Fearing the worst, she called out loud her son's name while running through to his room. But it was empty. She was hysterical at this point. She saw the phone on the living room table and she ran to call the police. As she was about to take the phone, a drop of liquid dropped on her hand. She stopped her movement, examining the liquid. It was blood. Another one dripped from the ceiling. She slowly lifted her head to see the origin of those drips. When she saw it, she screamed. Sergeant Patowski and Lieutenant Balding were not occupied. They were based in a little restaurant in the middle of the town. As they were on the night shift, they had consumed a lot of coffee to prevent them from sleeping at work. It was their job to ensure the security of the citizens after all, even at night. Suddenly they got a call. Apparently someone heard a woman scream and many breaking noises in a small house in the suburbs. As they drove to the house, Lieutenant Balding suggested that maybe it was a poor fellow who slept during a horror movie, causing many laughs in the car. As they arrived, they were still laughing a little on the inside. They knocked at the door. No answer. They knocked louder. Still no answer. The young sergeant pointed out at this moment that no sounds were coming from the house. Fearing the worst, they broke down the front door and analysed the situation. As they got deeper into the house, they saw two bodies. One, male for sure, but the other one was too damaged to determine the gender. Searching for enemies that could still be hiding, they opened each door, and as they got to the end of the corridor, only one door faced them. They opened it up, and they instantly felt all the food they had eaten trying to return from them. As they struggled to keep their food in them, and their flashlights in their hands, they lit up the scene. There was a child's body, hanging at the end of a rope. The child's eyes had been removed from their eye sockets. His mouth had been butchered to look like a twisted smile. His hands were also lacerated, and were now looking like claws. The old lieutenant swore between his teeth, and asked the sergeant what kind of sick person would do something like that to a child. A note was taped to the boy's chest, and as the policeman tried to take it, they walked into liquid. A large amount of liquid. They looked down and saw a mix of blood and tar making a huge pool under the kid's feet. And then, they heard it. Plick. The faint sound of a drop. Plick. They looked at the boy's corpse, but the origin wasn't on the boy's front. Plick. As they walked around the boy, they saw where the blood was coming from. Plick. The entire boy's back was a mess of muscle and bone, torn up from inside out, like something had burst from his back and splashed everything with blood and tar. And it looked like something had worn him, like clothes. Plick. That was too much for both policemen, who ran out of the room, vomiting everything they could and wanting to unsee what they just saw. While they were trying to call for reinforcements, while trying to hold in their stomachs, the note on the boy's chest came off and floated in the air, before falling into the red and black pool. Before it was completely soaked in blood and tar, the note had 5 words on it, written in blood. Another soul has been claimed. Thank you for sticking around to the end. If you enjoyed today's story, don't forget to leave a like. And if you want to hear more stories like it, don't forget to subscribe and click that bell icon. That way you'll never miss a story. Oh, and if you haven't already, don't forget to follow me on Twitter so you can keep up with the latest goings on the channel.